has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State's Jalen Watts-Jackson, and he scores on the last play of the game. Unbelievable.
45-30, 35-40, 45-50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the missed field goal.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ian Fritz Show. Guys, it's cold out here. I don't know where you guys are at, but where I am, as you can see around me, we've got this blizzard going on. And it's cold. It's cold, but that doesn't stop us here at the Ian Fritz Show. Any kind of weather, if I was out here in the desert, we'd still be doing the show. And, we've got this blizzard going on, but college football does not stop. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. Doesn't matter what's going on. Doesn't matter that I'm in a blizzard right now, that I'm freezing my tail off out here in this blizzard. Doesn't matter. We've got college football to talk about. We've got a lot to get to today. Big stuff happened this week in the college football world. And if you guys don't have one of these types of jackets, it's got like this fur on the inside, if you can see that, if you're watching it on YouTube. But if you're not on podcast, if you got one of these jackets with some fur on it, man, it keeps you warm, but we're out here in the cold. We're out here in this blizzard. College football still going on. Probably the biggest news any offseason has ever had in college football happened this week. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you're about to know. Nick Saban, the absolute legend that he is, the GOAT of college football, Nick Saban has retired. Alabama's head coach for 17 years. It's a sad day. It's a sad day. Now, it happened a few days ago, 3-4 days ago. If you're following on TikTok, I put a video out about it a couple days ago. So if you're not plugged for the TikTok, go over there, follow that. We got videos out every week. Nick Saban has retired, and I chose to use the GOAT every time I refer to him now, and that's what he is. Anytime you see a picture of Nick Saban, it should be replaced by a picture of an elderly GOAT now that he's up there in his 70s, 72 years of age is Nick Saban. And just a little courteous, I think we should all call him by his real name now, Nicholas Lou Saban Jr., and a lot of you probably didn't know that was his actual name, and I did, but a lot of you probably didn't. But he's a GOAT. He is the GOAT of college football coaching. What he has done in the sport cannot be understated. What he has done at Alabama cannot be understated. What he has done, just changing the landscape of college football, you can't say it enough. We owe so much to Nick Saban in this sport, what he has done for college football, changing the landscape of how we look at college football, how we view it as an absolute monster in the sports industry. A lot of that can attribute to Nick Saban and what he has done at Alabama, at LSU, at Michigan State. Wherever he's been great. Now, what he did at Alabama, that's what he's going to be recognized for most of the time. What he did there and how he revolutionized that program that was really good, went through some tough times, and then now is at the top of college football every year. 7 national titles in his head coaching career. His run at Alabama, historic, never going to be done again by any head coach anywhere in the country. Once again, Nick Saban has shown us by retiring in this just manner that he did, shocking the world. Now, shock in a sense that we didn't see it coming maybe at this time. Not shocking that he's retiring. It makes sense. He's 72 years old. There's videos of him talking to his players, talking to Kirby Smart in the SEC championship game. He's too old for this. He's getting too old for this. And he said it. He's been open about it. There was an interview with Chris Fowler earlier this week where he said, I'm fine. I'm not dying or anything, but it's just I'm getting too old for this, the day in, day out grind that is being a college football head coach. I'm too old for it. I can't do it anymore. It's too much on my body. I'm working 15, 16 hours a day, and that's not what I want anymore. Now, what he did also say is that he's not completely stepping away from Alabama. He's not completely stepping away from the college football world, which is a good thing for college football. The biggest takeaway I have from Nick Saban retiring is that it's a loss. It's a loss for the college football world. It's a loss for, obviously Alabama. It's a loss for obviously those players, obviously those recruits in that fan base. But you go even further, it's a loss for just generic college football fans. Every Saturday, you sit down, you see Alabama, you're like, oh, here we go. Nick Saban's got another crew. He's got another team that can go win a national championship this year. And next year, when we sit down on the first Saturday in college football and we have Alabama playing whoever they're playing, we're not having Nick Saban on that sideline. It's going to be a different guy. They've hired their guy. I'll get to that in a minute. It's a different guy. I don't know if we've all let that sink in and let that marinate with our just thoughts and when we think of Nick Saban right now, at least people my age, younger than me, most definitely, they think Alabama, Nick Saban, it's one unit. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Not anymore. Not anymore. He's done. He's done. That is sad. This is probably the saddest thing that's happened in my college football life, in my college football time. Definitely covering the sport as I do now. But even since I was able to watch college football, this is probably the saddest thing that has happened for the sport. Now, why is that? A legend. A legend. Now, some people are celebrating. I've seen people put celebration videos out there. They're popping champagne, doing the little confetti poppers, like, at those baby showers where it's like a blue confetti, a pink confetti. Well, they're doing the all colorful confetti because it's like a celebration for them. Hey, this guy's done. We can finally have a chance. We can finally have a chance because Nick Saban's gone. We have a chance to win the SEC this year. No, you don't. No, you don't. Nick Saban's still a part of that program. You better believe he's going to have his hand in building the program up still, in changing things that he thought needed to be changed, things that he can instill in the next head coach. Hey, these guys will help you. These guys won't help you. He's going to be hands-on the program, just not on the sidelines every Saturday, not in practice every week. And that's a substantial thing to not be a part of when you're Nick Saban, the greatest head coach of all time in college football. But he's still going to be a part of the program, but he's not going to be a part of college football every Saturday. And that's where we're losing something as the college football world. That's the saddest thing that has happened in college football probably the last 20 years. It's sad when you lose a legend, when a GOAT retires. It's sad. Now, there's a lot of hatred towards the GOATs because they are, quite frankly, the greatest of all time, and people hate people who are more successful than them. You're jealous of success. That's what you are as a human. You see someone doing things that you thought you would do. You thought you could be the best coach of all time. No. Nick Saban, he's got that title. We're not going to see anybody like him ever again. What he has done at Alabama, what he did at LSU, Michigan State, throughout his entire career, we're not going to see that ever again. And I don't think we can state it enough times. I don't think I can say it enough times. It's not going to be the same world without him. It's not going to be the same world without him. He changed college football. He changed the landscape of college football, how everybody views it, how it became a huge market. If Nick Saban wasn't as successful as he was, college football wouldn't be as big as it is. It wouldn't be as successful as it is. When Alabama took over the world, took over the college football world, that's when college football started taking off. Yes, it was huge. It was huge early 2000s, But when Nick Saban took over Alabama, that's when college football became what it is today. That's when recruiting became what it is today. Nick Saban changed the game. He changed with the game. Everything he did in the sport changed it for the better. We're going to miss him in the college football world. The GOAT has retired. Now, I'm going to take a sip. We've got his replacement at Alabama. We have his replacement. Let me take a sip here. Surprised this water's not frozen yet because we're in this blizzard, but it's still going strong. It's got a little heater on it, so we're going strong. We're going strong. Okay. Nick Saban's replacement. I love this replacement, everybody. If you're following on Twitter, I've been praising this hire from Alabama. I've been praising what they've done, and I think I'll get into it in a second while I'm discussing who they've hired. But a lot of people, there's a lot of haters on this hire. A lot of people are upset. A lot of Alabama fans, some notably the fans of this former head coach's organization. Makes sense. I wouldn't want to lose my head coach either, especially not to a program like Alabama. So KALEN DEBOER, you heard him last couple weeks. We've been talking about him on the show. Head coach of the Washington Huskies is now headed to Tuscaloosa. He's heading to be the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. I think this is a slam dunk, home run, whatever word you want to use, Hail Mary, touchdown. I don't care. Whatever you want to use, whatever sport you want to relate it to. home run, slam dunk, alley-oop, I don't know, full quarter head, I don't know what it is. But this dunk right here, this head coaching hire from Alabama, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Now, why am I saying that? Why would you say that, Ian? Why is KALEN DEBOER? He was at Washington. Washington's not this big brand. It's that, they're up there in the Northwest. Nobody goes up there. They don't have the fan base that Alabama has. He doesn't deal with the scrutiny that Alabama deals with. And now maybe you're right about that. And you could say, well, Ian, he hasn't recruited this high-level talent that Alabama is notably always recruiting. He doesn't know how to relate to these recruits. He doesn't know what to do in the South. Get out of here with that. That's not what this hire's about. Okay, they didn't hire KALEN DEBOER because he's the best recruiter on the planet. They didn't hire him because of that. And they would have been stupid to hire the best recruiter on the planet. Why? Alabama doesn't need an elite recruiter. They don't need somebody that can go into these guys' living rooms and just convince them that he's the best and Alabama's the place to be. They already know that. They already know Alabama's the place to be. Nick Saban has built that, and that's not going to change. These recruits aren't going to change their minds and think, Nick Saban's gone, Alabama's gone. No. Alabama is always going to be around. Always. They're not disappearing. And if they do, come back to this video and say you were wrong, Ian. But I'm not. So you're not going to come back to this video and say, Ian, you were right. Because that's not what happens. That's not what happens in this business. But I'll come back to it and say, Ian, you were right. And I would thank myself. And if you want to, you can think along with me, but you probably won't. Anyways, Alabama's not going anywhere. KALEN DEBOER is going to fit right in because he's a great head coach. He knows how to win on Saturdays. And that's the most important thing. And frankly, that's the most important thing every single head coaching job in the country. If you can win on Saturdays, everything else will figure itself out. Now, a lot of high school recruits, and this is well known out there, they don't have the same maturity and development as some transfer portal guys. So their priorities might be different than those in the transfer portal. And that's why KALEN DEBOER has had some success in the transfer portal, because most of those guys know, hey, I don't need this flashy Lamborghini for me to take a picture while I'm on a visit like all these high school recruits do, except we'll get into a guy that did that in the transfer portal this last weekend. They don't need that anymore. They need, hey, is this coach going to get me to the NFL? Is he going to get me first-round pick, second-round pick in the NFL? Is he going to set me up for success after I graduate college, after my third year in college? And I've got news for you guys. KALEN DEBOER, that guy can do it. Everywhere he's been, he started out as a high school head coach. Just saying that is absurd. A high school head coach 25 years ago, 30 years ago, is now the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. He worked his way up the ladder more than anyone else I've ever seen in the college football world. He started literally as low as you can, maybe like a Pee-wee football league or something is probably lower, but whatever. Almost as low as you can go on the ladder, and he just stepped his way up incrementally every single year. And now he's at the top of the ladder, and the top of the ladder is Alabama football team. They will always be the top of the ladder. They will always be the top of the rung. And some of you might say, well, Ian, all these other coaches didn't want to leave their programs. They didn't want to go to Alabama. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. We never actually heard these guys were offered the job. They were just reports that Dan Lanning is the leading candidate. He's their favorite to become the head coach. And Dan Lanning put out the video. He's like, I'm staying. I'm not leaving. I'm staying. Oregon's where I want to be. Well, good for you, Dan. And I'm sure enough gonna believe if KALEN DEBOER is not the guy and it does not work out at Alabama, and Dan Lanning gets a call from Alabama saying, hey, Dan, we need you to be the head coach. We need you to be the next head coach of Alabama. I'm willing to bet a lot of money that Dan Lanning will leave Oregon for Alabama. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that's probably gonna happen because Alabama is on a different level than Oregon. People think that Dan Lanning possibly turning down the Alabama job this time around thinks that now all of a sudden Oregon is on the same tier as Alabama. It's not. That's not how it works, guys. Quite frankly, Alabama is on a tier of its own. That's a job anyone in the country would go to. It is at the top of the list, and it will stay at the top of the list no matter what. Now, KALEN DEBOER, winner everywhere he goes. That's how you work up the ladder. If you're not an elite recruiter, if you're not this guy that can just persuade every single player in the country to go to your team, hey, come here. I know we're in the middle of nowhere, but I'm your guy. I've never been a recruiter, so I'm not entirely sure what those conversations consist of. It's a lot of negotiations, but KALEN DEBOER, not known for that. What he's known for, X's and O's, developing guys, putting a scheme together on Saturday to win football games. How do I know that? Well, his head coaching record, in all of his head coaching records put together, his overall head coaching record, this number is absurd. 104 wins to 12 losses. 104 wins to 12 losses. And people are condemning this hire. People are shouting from the mountaintops, KALEN DEBOER is not our guy. He can't recruit at Alabama. He can't recruit the players that want to play at Alabama. He's not from the South. He doesn't have the ties. He can't do it. Look, enough with that nonsense. 104 and 12, I think he's going to be just fine at Alabama. If you know how to win, if you can go out on Saturday and put a winning product on the field and put guys into the league, Alabama's going to be just fine. Alabama will be just fine. Players are going to go to Alabama every single year because it's Alabama, because of that A on their chest, because of that A on the middle of the field. That's why they're going to Alabama. They're not going to Alabama just because Nick Saban was there. Now, I can't argue with the fact that that was a heavy, heavy part of it. That was a big piece of the pie, a big layer of the cake in going to Alabama. But Alabama, Nick Saban's still there. And I have to believe that he's going to be involved in talking to players and saying, this place is still here. It's not just me. What we've built at Alabama is bigger than me. And I'm sure he's talking to KALEN DEBOER right now and saying, hey, that's what you got to sell to the players. And they'll buy it because it's Alabama. It's not Washington. Frankly, for Washington, you're not on the same tier as Alabama. But KALEN DEBOER, he's going to win. He's a winner. He's a proven winner everywhere he goes, and I don't think anything's going to change at Alabama. People are freaking out. KALEN DEBOER's not our guy. Not our guy. Can't recruit at Alabama. Not going to happen. And Alabama's not going anywhere. Newsflash for you. If you're celebrating the downfall of Alabama because Nick Saban has retired, you're wrong. And I had to pause there because I was getting a little chilled. This blizzard is no joke. It is no joke. We're probably about 4 or 5 inches of snow right now. So just heads up, if you're not in the blizzard right now, you're lucky. You're lucky because it is cold. It is cold. Now, enough with the Alabama head coaching talk. Shout out to Nick Saban. We're going to miss you in the college football world. And congrats to KALEN DEBOER getting one of the biggest jobs in all of college football, the biggest job in all of college football, maybe the most prized job in sports, quite possibly. Congrats to KALEN DEBOER, working his way up the ladder, old-fashioned way. He did it. Congrats to him. Now, this news has been updated in the last 30 or 40 minutes or so. The leading candidate to replace KALEN DEBOER at Washington is Lance Leipold, the head coach of the Kansas Jayhawks. So we will keep an eye on that on the Ian Fritz Show. Follow along on Twitter if you want. Follow over there. We keep up with the news daily. It's better than just putting out a video every 5 minutes because I'm at work during the day and I cannot do that. So if you want to follow daily, follow over there on Twitter, follow on TikTok. Those are 30-second videos that are easier to put out than this big long podcast or YouTube video as well. So follow over there. Subscribe right now if you're not subscribed, and we'll get into some transfer portal guys that are transferring schools. And one of those players is former Alabama wide receiver Isaiah Bond. He entered the transfer portal when Nick Saban announced his retirement. And he's going to Texas. He's going to the Texas Longhorns, team that beat them earlier this year. And Texas is losing all of their receivers, their 4 or 5 leading receivers this year. So they needed to replenish their guys, and they got a veteran presence in that young locker room. Steve Sarkisian just reloading his room, what he does with those guys. Now, what I find interesting about this story is the day he entered the transfer portal, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, the reports were saying Isaiah Bond going to Texas. People were logging their expert predictions, as you call them, on the recruiting services. They were logging crystal balls, whatever you want to use, whatever word you are synonymous with. They were saying he's going to Texas. Now, I have a hard time believing that when he put his paperwork in, 2 hours later, that's how long it took him to figure out he's going to Texas. I have reason to believe, and this is not just Texas doing this, by the way. This is one of the biggest issues with the transfer portal is tampering. Now, tampering happened long before the transfer portal was a thing and NIL was a thing. However, I think it's a bigger issue in college football now than it ever has been. And just a little spoiler, we have an episode coming out in the next couple weeks about issues in college football. It'll probably be a couple different episodes about issues in college football and how we can change them for the better and the just longer life of college football, if you will. So one of those is tampering, NIL, transfer portal. How do we get this all sorted out? Because it's an issue. It's an issue. Now, this isn't just Texas. As I mentioned, you've got teams doing this all over the country. Ole Miss, Tennessee, they're all doing this. Texas A&M, it doesn't matter. They're talking to guys while they're in school or talking to guys that know the guys on the team. And they're saying, hey, we'll offer you this much money. You hop in that portal there. You ship right over onto Austin, Texas, and you're a starting wide receiver. You're getting $1 zillion in the bank. You're getting a Lamborghini. And as I mentioned earlier, I said these transfer portal guys, they don't need a Lamborghini while they're visiting these other schools in the transfer portal. They've already done that. They're there to win. Well, Isaiah Bond posted this morning on his Snapchat a picture of him in a Lamborghini in Austin, Texas. So I don't know, maybe Isaiah wasn't getting compensated at Alabama. Maybe they don't have Lamborghinis in Alabama. I'm not sure. They have them in Austin, Texas, and Isaiah Bond will be driving one. I don't know if he got it as a rental for the day. I don't know what the deal is there, but he was in a Lamborghini. I mean, that's pretty cool. I'd like to step foot in a Lamborghini someday, but I can't enter the transfer portal because I'm not in college and I don't play college football. Unfortunately, that cannot happen for me. So I don't blame him for getting more money, going to a team that has some stability, unlike Alabama, changing head coaches. Texas is coming off their best season in a long time. Steve Sarkisian, offensive guru, and he's stepping right in with a quarterback that is proven, a proven winner in Quinn Ewers. So I can't blame the guy for going to Texas. It makes all the sense in the world. He's going to be their number one wide receiver. So it makes sense for Isaiah Bond. But the biggest story about Isaiah Bond going to Texas is the tampering in college football right now with the transfer portal. You can't convince me that in 2 hours, him in Texas and Steve Sarkisian figured out, yeah, all right, this is our deal. We're doing it in 2 hours. And that's how people log their predictions. They were talking to him before he entered the transfer portal. Doesn't shock me at all. Now, another guy that is transferring is Cameron Ward, former Washington State quarterback, former Cougar, is going to the U down in Miami. And many regarded him as the highest ranked, best quarterback in the transfer portal. A lot of recruiting services said he was the top guy in the portal. Now, I'll get into what I think about the portal rankings in a little bit after I'm done talking about Cameron Ward and one other guy. But Cameron Ward to the U. A couple weeks ago, if you remember, if you were following along on Twitter, Cameron Ward declared that he was going to the NFL draft. And fast forward to today, we learned that he is not going to the NFL draft. He is going to Miami. Now, Miami was always the leader for him. So it makes sense that he's going to Miami. That's the school he picked. It wouldn't have made sense if he was going to Washington or Alabama or somewhere like that. Wouldn't have made sense to find out that. So Miami makes sense. But him coming back, I think, has all to do with his draft grade. Now, the draft grade is something you get whenever you declare for the draft or about to declare for the draft, and these scouts come tell you, hey, you're a third-round grade. That's what we think you're going to be drafted at. Not guaranteed. We're not saying if you don't get drafted in the third round, you can go back to college and nothing bad happens for you, okay? That is just the grade they get from the scouts, from the guys in the NFL, saying this is where this is where you can get to, okay? And Cameron Ward wasn't happy with what he received. A lot of people said he received a third or fourth round grade, and Cameron Ward believed he was a first rounder. He believed he is a first round pick. Now, I tend to disagree with Cameron Ward in his thinking. Now, I'm all for the guy believing in himself. I'm all for the guy thinking, hey, I didn't get my grade. I'm going back to college to get a better grade. That makes all the sense in the world. All the sense in the world. That's what more players should do. And quite frankly, the guy that I'm about to talk about, I think that's what he should do. But it makes all the sense in the world. If you don't get the draft grade you think you are valued at, you should go back to college and try and get that draft grade. Makes all the sense in the world. And he can also make a lot of money while doing it. Makes all the sense in the world for Cameron Ward. However, I don't think he's going to boost his draft grade at all. Why is that, Ian? Why are you hating on Cameron Ward? Well, first of all, I think Cameron Ward is a great college quarterback. He was the first ever certified stud muffin, so he will always be a part of this show. He will always be a part of history, and we will probably get him on the show at some point when the show is more well-known, because he was the first ever certified stud muffin. So I'm not hating on the guy at all. I think he has immense talent. However, he does have one big problem, and that's his turnover issues. He likes to give the other team the football. And in football, that is a big no-no. You do not want to give the other team the football. You want to keep the football and score. But Cameron Ward has a tendency to fumble the ball, has a tendency to be a little loose running the football, has a tendency to throw it to the other team. That's his biggest flaw. And usually, when you go to the next level, the turnover issues don't just disappear. They usually compound and get worse. So if he can figure that out at Miami this year, I think he has potential to get to the first round. I don't think he will, but he has potential to do so. If he can work on the turnover issues, I think he can be a first rounder. Now, I don't think he can work on the turnover issues, especially not at a school like Miami with the head coach they have. I'm not a Mario Cristobal fan. Now, some people disagree with me. They think this makes Miami a team to compete with in the ACC. Now, talent-wise, I agree with you. They got all the talent in the world down there in Miami. However, head coaching-wise, I don't think they have a guy that knows what he's doing. Now, he knows how to recruit. He knows how to get players there with talent. He knows how to do that. I don't think he knows how to do the X's and O's on Saturday. Remember the Georgia Tech fiasco earlier in the season when all they had to do was take a knee and they win the football game. He decided to run it. They lose. It should have been talked about more. It's the biggest scandal in college football this year. It's the biggest game day conundrum I've ever seen. Makes no sense, and I'm solely basing my my thoughts on Mario Cristobal on that one mistake, maybe, but he hasn't done a lot with the talent he has, so I'm not going to say he's going to do a lot with the talent he has. That's not saying he can't do it, except I don't think he can. So I am saying he can't do it. Now, one guy that is not coming back to college, but he is instead going to the NFL, going to take a sip here, podcasters, is J.J. McCarthy. The news broke an hour ago or so. J.J. McCarthy's going to the NFL. I think it's a mistake. Unlike Cam Ward, I think J.J. McCarthy maybe got the grade that he was looking for. Or Jim Harbaugh's leaving. He knows he's leaving, and he doesn't want to stay at Michigan without Jim Harbaugh. I think there's one or two ways right there. He got the grade he's looking for, probably a third or fourth round grade. I don't think he can convince himself that he's a first or second round pick. I don't see it. And I don't do draft grading for a living, but I like to think I know talent. And J.J. McCarthy, talented guy. He's not a first or second round quarterback in the NFL. No chance. And if he gets drafted in the first or second round, I think it's a mistake for one of those teams. So I like JJ. Seems like a nice guy. Never met him, but I think he should be going back to college. And I think this signifies Jim Harbaugh is gone. I said it in the show last episode. Jim Harbaugh is gone, and I think J.J. McCarthy to the NFL echoes that sentiment a little bit more. Now, to end the show, I'm just going to go on a little bit of a transfer portal rant in how they rank. It's getting a little cold here, guys. In how they rank their quarterbacks or their players in the transfer portal. These rankings I'm about to read to you are from 24/7 Sports. So if you want to show me another list that's different, they're all different, by the way. But this is just the transfer portal quarterbacks in their final rankings because the transfer portal is over for the most part. So number one, they have Aiden Childs from Oregon State to Michigan State. Dante Moore, UCLA to Oregon. Cameron Ward, Washington State to Miami. Malik Murphy, Texas to Duke. Malachi Nelson, South Carolina. USC to Boise State. Will Howard, Kansas State to Ohio State. Riley Leonard, Duke to Notre Dame. Brock Vandegrift, Georgia to Kentucky. DeQuan Finn, Toledo to Baylor. And rounding out the top 10, you have Dylan Gabriel, OU to Oregon. Now, some of you might know where I'm going with this if you follow on Twitter. Again, follow over there. Daily updates over there on Twitter. my whole issue with the transfer portal rankings is that they bake in future success or future potential. How long can this guy be in college? Is he just a one-year rental? Things of that nature. They bake in a lot of that when they're doing their rankings because Aiden Childs, the number one player in the transfer portal, has done nothing in college. He's gotten in a few games when Oregon State was up big. Now he's a talented freshman. So I understand that all the potential everybody sees with him. That makes sense. All right. He was a highly recruited guy coming out of high school, but he's done nothing in college. In the transfer portal, everybody is trying to get guys that can help their team immediately. Dudes that are going to make an impact on the field when they get there. That's what your transfer portal is for. If that's the case, the guy at number 10 on this list has proven himself to be the best quarterback on this list in college. What he has done in college, Dillon Gabriel, is light years better and more productive than any of the other guys on this list. Now, maybe I should just make my own transfer portal rankings, and we will be doing a transfer portal rankings breakdown next week when everything settles and all the dust settles on this transfer portal. But my whole issue, how are we not? I'll take Cameron Ward, Will Howard, Dillon Gabriel, and Riley Leonard. The four guys that have played the most football on this list. You have Cameron Ward at number 3. You have Will Howard at number 6, Riley Leonard at 7, and Dillon Gabriel at 10. All four of those guys are one-year rentals. They're only staying in college one more year. That's what they're doing. They're not there for 3-4 years to help be a part of a program. They're there for we're trying to win a national championship next year. That's what we're doing. That's what my goal is. That's what this team's goal is. And after that, I'm out of here. Sorry, guys. Now, what I want to know is how they ranked those four guys. Because those four guys, one-year rentals, as I said, how was Cameron Ward ahead of Will Howard, Riley Leonard, and Dillon Gabriel? Now, my only qualm is the way I would break down those four guys, I would say Dillon Gabriel, I would go Cameron Ward, I would go Will Howard, and I would go Riley Leonard. Now, why would I have Dillon Gabriel number 1? Well, number 1, he has shown to be the most productive quarterback out of those four guys. He has shown it on the field time and again. Top 10 college passer of all time, yardage-wise. Go watch his film. The game-winning drive against Texas this year, he's a great quarterback. He should be ahead of all three of those guys, which I think would put him at the top of this list. Now, Cameron Ward, why do I have him number 2? Well, I like his legs. He's got the ability to run around a little bit. He's got a great deep ball. He has the turnover issues, but I think he can work on that. So I'd have him number 2, and he's been productive. He's had some big games against big-time opponents. Will Howard, I would have number 3 in that list. He's shown some flashes, but he also, like Cameron Ward, has turnover issues. And I, quite frankly, am not as high on Will Howard as the rest of the people in the transfer portal rankings. So maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see what everybody else sees with Will Howard. And Riley Leonard, the dude played like 3 games this year, so I'm not sure why he is ahead of a lot of these guys on this list. So my big qualm, my big issue, how are we ranking these guys? What is the criteria? Are you just throwing these dudes out there because he was a nice high school recruit? He's got 3 years, but then a guy that has more. Malachi Nelson was the number 1 recruit in the country, and he's behind Dante Moore, Aiden Childs, and Cameron Ward, but he's ahead of Dillon Gabriel, who's proven himself as a quarterback. I would bet $1 million that Oregon would rather have Dillon Gabriel than everybody else on this list. $1 million. That's because he's the best quarterback on this list. It doesn't matter he's going to be there only 1 year. He's the best quarterback on this list. Oregon got their guy, and they got their guy for the next year as well. So Oregon cleaning up in the transfer portal. Now, that's all I have for the show today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. We'll see you in the next episode. Subscribe, like the video, share it to everybody you know. Follow on Spotify, Twitter, TikTok as well. I thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I love you guys. Bye.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. It's picked up by Michigan State's Jalen Watts-Jackson, and he scores on the last play of the game. Unbelievable.
35, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to